On the evening of June 19, 1977, CBS television cameras set up inside the Omaha Civic Center in Nebraska and began recording what was meant to be a moment of triumph. Elvis Presley had signed a deal with CBS for a new television special, his first since Aloha from Hawaii in 1973. The network had paid $750,000. The deal was straightforward. CBS would film Elvis performing on his summer 1977 tour and produce a one-hour special for broadcast in October. For CBS, it was a sound business decision. For Elvis, it was the kind of return to national television that his people had been trying to engineer for years. The Omaha Civic Center held 10,000 people. It sold out. Elvis took the stage. What CBS filmed in Omaha on June 19th was not what they had paid for. Elvis Presley was 42 years old, and his health had been deteriorating for years, in ways that the Las Vegas crowds had always been willing to overlook. The weight gain, the labored movement, the performances that were extraordinary in some moments and difficult to watch in others. But what the CBS cameras captured in Omaha on June 19th was something beyond the usual complexity of Elvis's later performances. The first show was bad. Joe Esposito, Elvis's road manager who was present for the filming, said plainly he was obviously way overweight. The production team, director Dwight Hemion, producer Gary Smith, co-producer Annette Wolfe, watched what they were filming and began to have a conversation that nobody had anticipated when the contract was signed. The conversation was this: is this material usable? The question was not about whether Elvis had talent. The talent was still there. His voice in 1977 was still remarkable, still capable of moments that stopped people cold, that reminded the room of exactly who this person was and what he could do when everything aligned. The voice had not gone, but the camera was recording more than the voice. It was recording a man who was visibly in trouble, and the people watching the footage understood that airing it on national television could do irreparable damage to the image that Elvis Presley had built over 22 years. Some accounts suggest the production team had already made a private decision to shelve the material before Elvis died. Then, the second night happened. To understand why the CBS decision mattered, you have to understand what Elvis Presley's television history meant. There were 3 Elvis Presley television specials in the history of American broadcasting. The first, in 1968, was the NBC comeback special, the black leather suit, the small stage. The voice returned to what it had always been. 42% of the American television audience watched. It was the moment that ended the formula film era and launched the Las Vegas comeback. A previous video on this channel has documented exactly how that special came to be. The second was Aloha from Hawaii in January of 1973, the first live concert broadcast globally via satellite, reaching an estimated 1.5 billion viewers across 40 countries. A creative and commercial triumph, the statement of a performer at the absolute height of his Las Vegas powers. The third was supposed to be the completion of a trilogy, the third act of one of the most significant careers in the history of popular music. Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's manager, reached a deal with CBS in the summer of 1977, $750,000 for a one-hour primetime special. Under the terms of the new deal Parker had negotiated with Elvis the previous year, the earnings would be split 50-50 between the manager and the performer, the first time in their long history that Parker had taken equal partnership rather than a management percentage. This detail is documented in the Wikipedia entry for the special and in multiple production accounts. On June 1, 1977, it was publicly announced that Elvis Presley had signed a deal with CBS for the new television special. CBS would film concerts during the summer tour. The production team would edit the footage into the third and final Elvis Presley television special. Elvis knew the cameras were coming. He knew he was going to be on national television. At the Rapid City show 2 days after Omaha, he told the audience with his characteristic grin, "If you haven't guessed by now, you're on television. Don't let the lights and cameras throw you, and try not to throw the lights and cameras if you can help it." He knew, and he still went on stage. If this is the kind of story this channel tells, the real history underneath the public record, subscribe. There are more of these. The June 19th show in Omaha was the first of the 2 concerts CBS filmed. The accounts of what happened that night are consistent across multiple sources. Elvis was not at his best. The combination of factors that had been weighing on his performances for months, the prescription medication, the physical deterioration, the exhaustion of a touring schedule that had been relentless since 1970, converged on June 19th in a way that was visible to the cameras and to the production team watching the monitors. The IMDb page for Elvis in Concert records that the June 19th show was, in the words of eyewitness accounts from the production, marked by the effects of drugs and stage fright. It is worth pausing on the phrase stage fright in this context. Elvis Presley had been performing since he was a teenager. He had played the Ed Sullivan Show in Madison Square Garden and the Houston Astrodome and the International Hotel in Las Vegas in front of 15,000 people night after night. Stage fright, in the ordinary sense, was not something Elvis suffered from. What the people watching June 19th in Omaha were seeing was something different. The specific unsteadiness of a man whose body was not cooperating with what his talent required of it. The voice was still there. When Elvis found a phrase and settled into it, the power was undeniable. The same 4 octaves, the same authority, the same fundamental ability that had changed American music in 1954. But between those moments was something the CBS cameras caught, and the production team could not unsee. Joe Esposito, Elvis's road manager who was present for the filming, gave a measured account. He was obviously way overweight. The production team watched the footage, the conversation about whether to proceed, whether the material was appropriate for primetime national television, whether it served the legacy of the artist whose career they had been contracted to document, began in earnest after June 19th. 2 days later, in Rapid City, South Dakota, something different happened. On June 21, 1977, Elvis Presley walked onto the stage of the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center in Rapid City, South Dakota. CBS was filming again. The production team was watching the monitors. He pulled himself together. The accounts are consistent here too. The June 21st show was significantly better than June 19th. Whatever combination of factors had made Omaha difficult, Rapid City produced something that the production team could use. Elvis was still not the Elvis of the 1968 comeback special, or the Elvis of 1970 at the International Hotel, but he was present in a way that June 19th had not fully provided. He gave the show what he had, and what he had was still, in moments, remarkable. The set list for the special as it finally aired drew primarily from the Rapid City concert. How Great Thou Art was performed, the gospel hymn that had won Elvis his first Grammy, the song that this channel's earlier documentary connected to his mother Gladys, and to the deepest roots of his musical life. When Elvis sang it in Rapid City, the production team understood they had something usable. His voice on How Great Thou Art in June of 1977 was still 4 octaves, still the specific instrument that had started everything in a Memphis recording studio in 1954. Near the end of the Rapid City show, aware that the CBS cameras were rolling, Elvis did something that would become the final image of him on national television. He looked out at the audience and said the words that he would apparently never have another chance to say from a stage. Till we meet you again. May God bless you. Adios. He was 42 years old. He had 26 days left to live. The CBS cameras were still rolling. On August 16, 1977, Elvis Presley died at Graceland. He was 42 years old. The CBS production team learned what most of the world learned, through the news. Gary Smith, the producer of the special, has given documented interviews about what happened next. The production team was in the editing phase, working on the footage from Omaha and Rapid City, making the decisions about what to include and what to omit, building the hour-long program that was scheduled to air in October. The death of their subject changed everything about that calculation. Before August 16th, the debate had been private. Can we air this material given how Elvis looks? The production team had, according to multiple accounts, been seriously considering whether to present the footage to CBS and recommend against broadcast. Some accounts suggest they had already privately made that recommendation. After August 16th, the calculation was completely different. Gary Smith gave an interview to the Tennessean, in which he said that on account of Presley's death, the team considered speeding up the editing of the program, but that they decided to release it on the originally scheduled date in October. This is the official account. The production continued as planned. The October date was maintained. But there was something else that needed to happen before the special could air. Something that had not been part of the original plan. Something that would only make sense once Elvis was dead. The special needed a closing message. It needed someone who could speak to the audience watching from the context of what had actually happened. The context of loss. Of 37 million people who had loved Elvis Presley and had lost him 6 weeks ago. The production team contacted Vernon Presley. In September of 1977, 1 month after Elvis Presley was buried at Graceland, the CBS production team sent a crew to Memphis to film a closing scene for the special. The scene they needed was simple. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, speaking directly to camera, acknowledging the loss, thanking the fans for their condolences and support. Vernon agreed. He sat down in front of the cameras at Graceland. He was 61 years old. He had already lost his wife Gladys in 1958, a loss from which Elvis had never fully recovered. Now he had lost Elvis. He was the last of the original Presley household. He sat down and spoke. What the producers had arranged around Vernon for this scene, visible in the footage of the special, was a collection of fan mail, letters from Elvis's admirers, envelopes, and papers arranged to create the visual context of an outpouring of public grief and support. There was a problem. The CBS production account, documented in a 2018 interview with Knoxville producer Ross Bagwell, says this: "It was still too early for the condolence letters to start to arrive. The fan letters arranged around Vernon Presley in that scene were not condolence letters. The actual condolence letters had not yet come in sufficient quantity to film with. The production team used letters that were already present at Graceland, fan mail sent to Elvis while he was still alive. The closing message of America's most watched program in October of 1977 was framed by letters written to a man who was not yet known to be dead by the people who wrote them. Vernon Presley looked at the camera. He spoke about the loss of his son. He thanked the fans. He told viewers that they had just witnessed Elvis's final performances. He was wrong about that last part. Elvis gave 5 more shows after Omaha and Rapid City. The final concert was June 26th in Indianapolis. But Vernon did not know this, or did not remember it, or the distinction did not seem to matter in the specific weight of September 1977. On October 3, 1977, 47 days after Elvis Presley died, Elvis in Concert aired on CBS. It was a Tuesday evening. The special ran for approximately 55 minutes. It was, according to the documented records, the most watched program in the United States in the week of its broadcast. 37 million Americans sat down and watched Elvis Presley perform. What they saw was not what anyone had expected when the CBS deal was announced in June. They did not see the triumphant third act of the greatest career in the history of popular music. They saw a man who was visibly not well, heavier than most of them had seen him, moving with less ease than they remembered, the gulf between the voice and the body more apparent in some moments than in others. But they also saw him sing. They saw How Great Thou Art from Rapid City. And in that performance, the 4-octave gospel hymn, the specific instrument that had started all of it, they saw what Joe Esposito meant when he said, alongside his observation about the weight, that some of the song performances were great. He still had his voice. The special had been edited, according to documented accounts, to minimize the most difficult footage. Close-up shots of Elvis's face, bloated and sweating, in the words of one production account, were reduced in favor of wide shots, audience reaction footage, and fan interviews that padded the running time while obscuring the full picture. Critics were not uniformly kind. One review called the program a portrait of a legend turning to clay. But the 37 million viewers were not critics. They were people who had lost something they had loved for 20 years, who wanted to see him one more time. They saw him one more time. Near the end of the Rapid City concert on June 21, 1977, Elvis Presley addressed the audience. He had done this at virtually every concert of his career. The informal moments between songs, when the performance paused and the person appeared, when the king stepped back and Elvis stepped forward. It was one of the qualities that his audiences loved most about him. The specific warmth of a man who talked to his audience the way you talk to people you know. At Rapid City, he spoke about gospel music. He said, "I have about 4 of his gospel albums," referring to the gospel singer George Beverly Shea, "and my favorite is How Great Thou Art." It makes you feel good when he sings it. It brings tears to your eyes. I just love the guy. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I just love the guy. And I wish him many years of success. And then, near the end of the show, as the performance was winding toward its closing song, he looked out at the audience one more time. This is what he said, captured on CBS cameras and broadcast to 37 million people on October 3, 1977. "Till we meet you again. May God bless you. Adios." He was not saying goodbye to a concert. He was saying what he always said at the end of a show. He said it at every concert. He said it without knowing, as none of us know, that this particular goodbye was the one that would last. Adios. May God bless you. Till we meet you again. The cameras kept rolling. Can't Help Falling in Love played. The audience stood. The white scarves were given out, and Elvis Presley walked off stage in Rapid City, South Dakota, for the last time on national television. He had 26 days left. Elvis in Concert was rebroadcast once, on May 7, 1978. CBS aired it a second time, and then the special disappeared from television. For nearly 50 years, it has not aired again. More significantly, it has never been released on home video, not on VHS, not on DVD, not on streaming. It is the only official Elvis Presley program that remains commercially unavailable in its complete form. Every other Elvis television production, the 1968 comeback special, Aloha from Hawaii, the early television appearances, is available to purchase, to stream, to see. Elvis in Concert exists only in bootleg recordings. Elvis Presley Enterprises, the company that manages Elvis's estate and has been administered in various forms since his death, has given a consistent explanation for why the special has not been released. The official statement from Graceland Records makes the reasoning clear. Because of the severity of Elvis's health problems at the time the special was shot, Elvis was far from his best in the way he looked and the way he performed. The true fans look at this through the eyes of love, respect, and understanding, and see the great historical value. What they are saying is this: they do not want the world to see Elvis this way. They want to protect him from the footage. The irony, and it is a significant one, is that 37 million people already saw it. In October of 1977, before the estate had the ability to control the legacy, CBS put it on national television, and America watched. The footage exists. The bootleg recordings circulate. The special is not hidden from anyone who wants to find it. The estate's decision to not release it commercially does not make it secret. It makes it unofficial. Meanwhile, the footage continues to be used in documentary projects. Clips appear in This Is Elvis from 1981, and in Elvis, The Great Performances from 1990. The material is not gone. It is simply not for sale. There is a final detail about Elvis in Concert that sits at the center of everything the special represents. It was supposed to be proof of life. CBS signed the deal in June of 1977, with the expectation of producing a primetime special that showed Elvis Presley in 1977, a man in his 40s at the tail end of a Las Vegas residency era, still filling arenas, still commanding a national audience, still capable of television that mattered. The special was supposed to be the continuation of the story, the third chapter, the sign that whatever happened in the late formula years and the complicated health years, Elvis Presley was still here. Instead, it became a testament. The word testament means two things. It means evidence, a record of what was, and it means a last will, a document that speaks from beyond. Elvis in concert became both at once, the evidence of a man in his final weeks, and the document he left behind without knowing he was leaving it. Vernon Presley's closing message, filmed 6 weeks after his son was buried, surrounded by letters that were not condolence letters, speaking to an audience that had already mourned, said, "I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to all of Elvis's fans around the world for the flood of cards, flowers, and other loving tributes following Elvis's death." He was 61 years old. He would survive his son by less than 4 years, dying in June of 1981. 37 million people heard those words in October of 1977. They heard Elvis's last words too. "Till we meet you again, may God bless you." The special was the most watched program in America that week. Not because people wanted to see what CBS had filmed in Omaha and Rapid City, because people wanted to say goodbye. Because when something you love is taken from you without warning, you reach for whatever evidence remains that it was real, whatever footage, whatever recording, whatever document confirms that the person you are missing actually existed in the world. CBS gave 37 million people that confirmation in the autumn of 1977. The special has never been commercially released. The decision continues to be debated by fans and historians, and Elvis scholars who believe the footage should be available, and by Elvis Presley Enterprises who believe it should be protected. The bootlegs circulate. The argument continues. What does not require argument is what happened on June 21st in Rapid City, South Dakota, when Elvis Presley looked out at a sold-out arena and said what he always said at the end, "Till we meet you again, may God bless you." He met them again on October 3rd, 1977. 37 million of them, all at once. If this is the kind of Elvis history you want to keep watching, subscribe to the channel. There are more moments, more people, and more untold stories still to document. And if you watched Elvis in concert when it aired, or if you have found it since, leave it in the comments. What did you see? What did you feel? This community was built for exactly that conversation.